What's with these drones flying over New Jersey, New York? Are we getting invaded by aliens? Is Iran trying to spy on us? What exactly is going on? I'm going to give you my take. And then there are three things on Donald Trump's agenda that only we, the people, can accomplish. He simply cannot do. And I'm going to get into those as well because they're incredibly important for turning this whole train wreck around. All right, let's get into it.
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
I don't want you to write. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad.
Is the whole world gone crazy? Am I the only one around here who gives a shit about the rule?
You have the luxury of not knowing what I know.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!"
Testing. All right. So here we go. We're going to start this again. My bad. To Roger over on Facebook, thank you for calling out the no sound. I was adjusting my mic and the plug actually fell out and I didn't catch it, but I can see the bar moving now, so I think we're better off. Ruben saying I can't hear you. Still, you can't hear me, or you guys got a little bit of lag. So you should be able to hear me loud and clear right now. So let me know if can someone just confirm with me that the audio is coming through. Let me check one of my streams here. I have a few of them up, I think, somewhere. So let me check on it. All right, I'm getting the audio on my end. I'm hoping that you guys are hearing it as well. Can someone just comment, Ruben or Roger? Just let me know that there's sound. But everything's showing good on my end now. I saw what the problem was. I fixed it, so we should be good. And then Ruben is saying, how do I comment on Twitter? There should be a box. I don't know what you're watching on, if it's your phone or if it's your computer, but there is a chat box under there for the live chat. I believe it's separate. It might be the same on Twitter. On Rumble, it's separate from the regular chat. I think Twitter is the same. But that being said, all right. And then Josh is saying we're up and running. So thank you guys for that feedback. Good catch on that, because I would have been blabbling on for ages. Sounds good on Rumble. Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, I had my mic unplugged, so that was no conspiracy theory here. I was adjusting it before, and the cable must have fell out. So, but I appreciate everybody. And Ruben over on X is saying Jersey is crazy. So it looks like you figured out how to comment on X. So yeah, Look, I've been kind of seeing these posts, and guys, don't fall. There's a lot of BS out there right now, and I will tell you, you'll see a lot of videos saying, there's some that are legitimate, and there are some that are BS and trying to start something and make this crazier even than it is. What I mean by that is, and one way for you to tell if you see one of these crazy videos, I'll give you a little tip, as I am in the field of researching for this podcast, and I do tend to be pretty good at calling BS. If you see a video that is making some wild claim, like a UFO coming from the ocean or things like that, pick a good spot of the video that's like an identifiable moment in the video and screenshot it. All right. You can go, I don't know how to do this on Apple, but you on Android, or if you're on your computer, you can take that screenshot and use Google Lens, all right, which will then look at the picture and give you all the different places it's found on the internet. And more times than not, you're going to find it come up with an old thing that someone had posted, and someone's just ripped it and republished it, and now is trying to make it relevant to the drone thing. But the drones are real, and so I don't want to act like they're not real. We know they're not the government drones. We know they're not foreign agents. Yeah. I don't know if they're government drones or not, right? So I think you're being sarcastic, of course, but yeah, but we know nothing to worry about. Yeah, exactly. Roger over on Facebook, the Patriot Think Tank is the only way I can comment. Sound is back. Thank you. Thank you. Perfect. All right. So here's my take on a couple of things to notice. Okay. Number one, all right. In my humble opinion, right, because none of us really know what the hell this bizarre crap is for 100% surety, but what makes sense to me is this. Number one, they're not from Iran. There is no mothership. Well, there may be a mothership, quote unquote, but it ain't from Iran. All right. Why do I believe this? I believe this because, as incompetent as some of the DEI hires and leadership in the military have been, deep state, the people that operate deep state, are not, you don't see them on TV. I guarantee you there are no DEI hires in that bunch, okay? And if the United States believed that the Iranians were buying equipment from the CCP and using it to hover over New Jersey in random places, we have the capabilities to remove that stuff, okay? There's no way on earth that could go on without the government being okay with it. That is the reality. All right. There's no way that there's just foreign aircraft that are incredibly suspicious floating around the United States and the government has no idea. And I mean, yes, it's easy for them to play stupid, but I ain't buying all that. All right. So not to mention, they purchased, according to these news stories and this congressman that came out, they purchased this tech from the CCP, who does not innovate tech. The CCP only steals tech, okay? There's nothing getting innovated despite the video propaganda they throw out on social media, their little 50 Cent army going on. There is no technology being innovated in China, all right? None. It is all stolen tech, most of it from the United States, some from other European countries, or elsewhere in the world. But none of it, zero of it, is being created by the CCP. All right, none of it. So if they did get this equipment from the CCP, then we already knew what it was. It's already like it's. We don't create anything that we don't have a defense to, with the exception of nuclear weapons, right? Like that's just how that kind of planning gets done when the tech is created. And these are just drones. So yeah, I ruled Iran out. Look, anybody could be wrong on anything, but in my head, that's my logic. There's just no way. There's no way an enemy country is going to be able to do that. All right. So I'm not buying it. The other part is the alien invasion piece. And if you saw the tweet, let me see if I have my tweet here. This was my tweet. Who had Project Bluebeam on their bingo card? So if you don't know what Project Bluebeam is, and I think the majority of people who watch this broadcast will have some idea, or at least will have heard of it before. I will explain it a little bit, all right? And because honestly, there's a lot of different scenarios that could be going on, and they don't all necessarily involve Project Bluebeam. But for those that don't know, Project Bluebeam was a conspiracy theory that was put out by a gentleman named Serge Monsat, and it's Monsat. He's a Frenchman. He's a journalist, an investigative reporter, and for many years considered conspiracy theorist, and still considered conspiracy theorist until it comes true, right? So, but he wrote a book in 1994 called Project Bluebeam, and Project Bluebeam NASA was the name of the book, and it basically outlines his claim that he has intel that the world governments, now he's a Frenchman, right? But his claim was that world governments in general were planning a takeover, New World Order we're familiar with now, right? Since 2020, when you hear this after 2020, it sounds a lot more believable than before 2020. But here's what it is. So the United States was, or not the United States, this global New World Order movement, right? Which I believe personally is run by the CCP, but we don't know, right? They don't invite us to the Bilderberg meetings and stuff. So they're planning on running through stages to, the main point will be to discredit all world religion, every organized, serious religion in the world to be discredited. How would they do this? Well, they would do it through an amazing light show, basically. It would be utilizing things like holograms, likely drones as well, but he was saying the holograms would be projected from satellites. But one way or the other, they're going to create holograms to try and mimic things like the second coming of Christ, to try to just blow people away. They were going to stage earthquakes, like create earthquakes at certain points around the globe, so that they can get that buy-in, and all these things should be happening around the same time, and that they're supposed to try and dupe us into believing we're seeing the second coming of Christ. And if you're Buddhist, then you'll see something that way. If like, everyone's going to get their own message, it's just going to be a global effort to debunk all religion, to convince everyone that they've been wrong all this time, and basically break the global faith in God. And I don't think it will be successful, but I don't know how impressive the tech is for these holograms. I know they made Tupac jump on stage as if it were alive, as if he were really there, and everybody in the audience was blown away and impressed. So the hologram technology at a low, and that was for consumers. So the hologram stuff, the tech is there. It's not unthinkable that it's there. All right. So, but this, whether it's Project Bluebeam or not, I absolutely think our government is fully aware of it. This is my real point. Our government is fully aware of it, and that it's got something to do with bad things for this country and likely for this world. And the timing of it is suspicious as well. Now, maybe it's a hobbyist, a really wealthy hobbyist who is just trying to freak people out. That's possible as well. However, I don't, again, even if it was a hobbyist, I don't think the U.S. government would just let him do what he's doing. So, if they're doing it, then of course no one's going to stop him. And the fact that no one is taking any kind of action against these drones, no one is doing anything to these drones, that is telling me that the United States government is fully aware of exactly what is going on. Not just they know there are drones. They know the origin of the drones. They know what the drones are doing. They're likely controlling them. If they're not, they know who is. And it's all a part of one big piece. That's my play on this. All right. So that's where I sit on the drone piece. Now, this Project Bluebeam. So once they break the world religion, let me just, I've made some notes here so I can keep myself organized. So artificial earthquakes, holograms of Jesus and other deities, if you will, to try and dispel that. And they were supposed to finish it off with an alien invasion. Okay. And again, excuse me, the alien invasion piece is another play to look, it's been aliens all this time. It's not God, blah, blah, blah. Like the entire piece was designed to break down people's faith. Because the one thing, and we know this from Marxism, right? The one thing you cannot have when you are trying to establish a world order or any order is faith getting in the way. Because if God is the biggest authority, that means you're not, right? And this was understood by tyrants for time and time forever, right? And so the logic behind why something like this would want to get accomplished, why something like this could get accomplished, is sound. I mean, that portion of it is sound. Now, whether or not, do we have documents? Do we have anything like that? I don't believe we do. This is a rabbit hole I never really jumped down. But, if there are documents out there, I would like to see them. If there are, I bet we're going to see them soon. Right? Because they're going to be dumping documents all over the place once this administration gets in. And that might be why you're seeing all this stuff come now. I don't know. I do know that there's likely a tie between this, at least I feel, right? That there's a tie between this and the election. And this and the inauguration, I should say. Like we're all kind of sitting there waiting to see what their last move is. Again, these guys are not likely to just pick up their ball and go home. There's a lot of people, once Kash Patel starts dumping FBI files and they start taking a deep look at NSA and DOD and DARPA and all this, like things are going to get creepy. And if they go public, like they say they're going to go with a lot of this stuff with unredacted documents, etc., a lot of people are likely going to go to jail. So, and for life, like it won't be like an oops. It'll be something that's, there's time traveling humans who came back from the future to take out our nukes so we don't destroy it, so that we don't destroy us and them. It's funny. I get that you're saying it as a joke, but you know what though? All these UFO sightings and UAPs, they call them officially in the government. Like all of these sightings, like throughout the years, they have been significantly around nuclear sites, and the signs of them have been, heavier at nuclear sites. There's actually one incident where they showed up over a U.S. nuclear site and shut down all the missiles, which was pretty wild. And then they turned them back on. It was almost like a muscle flex to be like, there's nothing you could do about us, right? Like, so there's an element of that as well, right? So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But it looks like I lost sound for a second, but I'm back on again. I'm not sure what caused that to happen. I don't know if that was on the stream. It was both comments were on Rumble. So it might be on Rumble's end at that point. But yeah, keep me informed, guys. If anything goes out, anything goes down, it's nothing worse than sitting there talking to yourself. Which is kind of what it feels like sometimes, especially when the comments are light. It's like, man, I'm kind of talking to myself here. but yeah, so I mean, I think the main point that I'm trying to get across is there's really no scenario I can imagine that involves the U.S. government not knowing exactly what's going on with these drones. I could believe that the governor of New Jersey doesn't. That I could believe. That he has no idea what's going on. That guy's a total do anyway. He's not there to do anything significant. He would likely never be informed of such things. And frankly, on a state level, the opinions of this behavior would be completely different than it is with the black budget folks up in the Pentagon. So, we're going to have to wait and see how this plays out, right? I mean, in the end, that's what we're going to have to do. I mean, I got, like I said, there were some believable clips of the, here's one that I thought was believable.
All right, I'm getting the spotlight and I'm gonna light this guy up. Go right over my head. Let's see. It doesn't seem to be bothered by a spotlight.
Right? So that one looked believable, right? Like that one looked like something that, something that they would use, right? Something that they would use. That's so when I saw that one, I said, all right, I'll clip that one in case no one has seen any of the videos and such that are coming, It wouldn't be the first time you talk to yourself. Ruben knows me well. So Ruben's my buddy back on the East Coast in, in New Jersey, and had to get his digs in. And of course, I put him up because I put up everything I can. So Murphy is a clown. Yeah, Murphy, governor of New Jersey, definitely a butthead and a doo-doo amongst doo-doos, right? So that guy, if they don't tell him what's going on, that's completely understandable. And the media is going to have no idea either. And then feeding that story, that's exactly what I think they did with that congressman, is they fed him that story, and he got all alarmed and alerted, and because he's in his head, they would never feed me a fake narrative, and the media, of course, runs with it, and that's why they feed it to him, so that he can go and feed it to the media, and then go on all the shows and tell everybody the Iranians are coming, and so, yeah, I'm not buying again, Iran, even if they bought this tech from the CCP and they had it, like the idea that they'd be able to operate it and then get a vessel over to the United States close enough for these things to be able to operate with nobody knowing where this quote unquote mothership is, it's just nonsense. It's all nonsense, right? The federal government knows exactly what's going on. They're not going to tell us. And the concern here for me is that the timing of it all smells horrible, right? So we're all sitting here waiting, right, for something to happen before January 20th, and now this crap starts, right? And it's like, well, what the hell are they up to now? We know they have no options left. So they're going to go all at it. Like by the time Trump's done with the U.S. government and his team are done cleaning up and getting rid of all the bogeys. I mean, China right now is thinking, well, what are we going to do for future technology, right? Because they're going to eventually lose their plants, and like it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough sailing for them. And the reality is, those who are here in the U.S., in the deep state, in the NSA, in the CIA, they're literally going. Some of them may get hung for treason, right? Not hung, right? However, I don't know how Washington handles that, but in the end, some of them may get sentenced with treason, and that's a death sentence. So the idea that you wouldn't pull out all the stops at this point, it's not unthinkable. And also, with all the creepy crap that deep state has done over the years, from experimenting on citizens, they dropped chemicals on San Francisco, killing people, the stuff that they've done, it's not above the pale to think that they've been sitting and working, with black budget money on an operation like this. It's not unthinkable. And when you combine that with the global scale of the globalist movement, again, not unthinkable. If the United States turns around, it's over for all of them. All this, gender shenanigans and all, it's all over. Everything starts going back to normal. Like sanity wins, and they know it, and they know that we're in a place right now where we're almost at that point. Like January 20th will begin that point where those things start to. Already the world is changing, and Trump hasn't even taken office. You've got the border. He goes ahead and says 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico unless they start taking care of their end of the border, their side of the border. All of a sudden, Canada starts taking measures to lock up their end of the border, and you've got the biggest fentanyl bust in the history of Mexico taking place a couple of weeks after. Like the idea that the rest of the world doesn't understand what's coming, and most are celebrating it, but the fact of the matter is they know it's coming nonetheless, and everybody's trying to do the right thing quickly, so that they can get in good grace with the people of this world, because they know the outings are about to come, and we're almost there, right? And as long as that's the case, victory for us. That's the way I see it. So I want to get into a little bit about these three things that Trump has on his agenda that he cannot do. All right. He cannot do them. And he wants to do them. He's openly spoke about doing them, but he cannot do them. Okay. He can be the catalyst that gets it done, but he cannot do them. No executive order will get it done. Really, in essence, no act of Congress is going to happen. And those three things are term limits, eliminating the income tax, and ending regulatory agencies. Now, you could put these people in the head of these agencies and start stripping them down and really defang them. And he may even be able to close some of them. But he won't, but they'll all be reopened again as soon as he leaves office, or as soon as, a non-Trump thinking person enters office. I know it feels right now like every president's going to be a Trump-minded president, but they won't. And eventually one will come in and undo anything he is able to get done. But term limits, for one, there's no way he can get done. Congress, I don't care that he has the House and Senate. They're not voting. That's self-preservation. There's plenty of rhinos in both houses of Congress who are not voting for term limits, period. They're not voting for it. It is not going to happen. And there is no way that he can wave a wand and make that happen, right? Eliminating the income tax, again, above his purview, it's a constitutional amendment. The 16th Amendment, he cannot just make it go away. The year that got put into the Constitution was absolutely devastating to this nation. And the fact is, they put in the 17th shortly after, and it was all just to set up the banking system for the Fed. That's all it was. That was the entire purpose of it all, right? It's not like their pitch to the people was that they were going to raise tariffs so high. Woodrow Wilson coming in with his talking about high tariffs, Congress people at the time talking about high tariffs. And when I say tariffs, I don't mean these foreign tariffs that Trump is talking about. I'm talking about consumer tax, basically, sales tax. And that's how the nation was funded before the income tax, were sales taxes. And so this threat of high taxes, high tariffs for everyone, unless you let us take this income tax from and they had some absurd, I forget what it was, like 0.3%, the top 0.3% or whatever, basically looking at the titans, right, and saying, we're going to take your money, right, all the highest level people, we're going to take their money. You won't be affected. Of course, they didn't write the amendment that way, and as usual, it didn't end the way they said it would. And we all know where we're at now, right? So, so the income tax is something he cannot do, although he has vocally said he would like to get rid of it. His plan to fund the country was a bit bizarre, but that's okay because we don't need to go with his plan, right? He's right on the point of getting rid of the income tax. And while some people, it blows their mind because they can't fathom any other way to tax, well, it's time to start reading a little bit for those people. All right. Now, I know they're talking, we'll end it on Social Security. We'll end it on tips. We'll end it. Just end it. Just end it. Right. And again, the last point is the regulatory agencies. So, he's appointing heads to these agencies that he says they're supposed to go away. He's been quoted notably by me for saying my Department of Education, when talking about his bizarre online university, is suing private universities and not suing the public. It's disturbing, but the fact that he says he was going to shut down the Board of Education. Okay, well, if you're going to shut it down, shut it down. But I think he realizes he doesn't have the power to do that. We, however, do, right? And this is where I'm kind of going with this, right? And those that know me know, just from listening to those topics, that that's where I'm going with this. If you've watched this show at any length or at any time, that's where I'm headed with this. Because what you're looking at above my head are the three topics for discussion for the current calling of a convention of states under Article 5 to propose amendments to the U.S. Constitution. All right. What does that mean? It means when states select delegates. Now, the federal government has no say in this process. It's important to note that. All right. Doesn't matter how structurally broken the federal government is. They're on the sideline eating popcorn while this happens. All right. So the states are petitioning right now. 19 are already on board. All right. We need 2/3 of the states And if we get that 2/3, it's 34 states, so we need 15 more. All right. And they tend to come in bunches when they come. All right. There's like dry spells and then they come in bunches. So, like, the states will go ahead, select delegates, the delegates will be sent to convention, and then those delegates will discuss the language of amendment proposals based on the topics given to them. And all 19 that have passed these resolutions have the same 3 topics. They're identical, all of their petitions. All right, they're for term limits, fiscal restraints, and government overreach. All right, the main point of the fiscal restraints really is a balanced budget amendment. I mean, that's kind of where it's been going, is forcing them to balance the budget, which has merit and is necessary. However, overturning the 16th Amendment is right in that purview, and they can absolutely do it. And if we make it known that that's something that we're going to make an election issue, an important one, they will put it together and give it to the states for ratification. And again, pressure will have to be put on state legislators to ratify it because it's important. It's important from a liberty perspective. It is paramount from a liberty perspective that this get done. All right. And government overreach of power and authority, again, regulatory agencies right in that wheelhouse. There is nowhere. I don't care what U.S. Supreme Court ruling has ever come down. They're not the final word. The people are the final word. The problem is the people just don't know it. That's been the problem, is that the people just don't even understand that they're the final word, that you can absolutely overturn the Supreme Court. The progressives did it with the 16th Amendment. They were shut down by the Supreme Court multiple times over decades in trying to get an income tax passed. But it was absolutely unconstitutional, and it was ruled as such, the Civil War being the only exception. And as soon as it ended, so did the income tax. Because the Supreme Court's not relevant if we lose the Civil War, because we lost the Civil War. The entire Constitution at that point would not be relevant. But as soon as the war ended, income tax was removed. So how did the progressives get around that? Now, this is an evil example, but this is how they did it, is they got a constitutional amendment passed. And forevermore, the United States government controlled the wealth of this nation. And it's absolutely absurd. There's no point in having liberty if you don't have ownership of your money and your property. If those two things are, and both of which are taxed, right? Now, property would be a state issue because those taxes are state, so there's nothing in this calling of a constitution that can address that. A separate one can be called, but good luck getting the states to ratify that, right? Now, we could, if we get aggressive and put people into each state legislature, who are pro our ideas, which is how this is supposed to work. But the current climate would be no. But the other three, the 3 that I just mentioned, are completely on the table. And what we need now, because Vance is already a supporter of the calling of a convention of states. Gates is a supporter, but is no longer in the cabinet, but will have influence, I'm sure. Pete Hegseth, also a vocal supporter. Pete Hegseth shows up to cause events and speaks at cause events. All right, so and he'll be a significant member of the cabinet. Huckabee, ambassador to Israel, he's also a big supporter. So there are supporters that will be surrounding the president. As the president talks about these agenda items, sooner or later, be it Vance or Hegseth or someone, is going to mention to him this movement. Because I think Trump's oblivious to this movement right now. I do. I don't think he's oblivious to it. I just think he doesn't fully understand it at all. And as a result, he's not going to make a comment on it. He's not going to say anything about it. But if he tries to get some of these things through, and he makes a move for term limits and realizes what a dead end it is, and he makes a move, to end the income tax and realizes there's nothing coming to his desk, well, that's when you go ahead and you start, Vance, go out there, educate the population on how this process works. We need to guide this through, and it's going to be a home run. And Vance will go and do that like a boss. And frankly, that will be the most legendary thing any president has ever done, like ever. As much as we feel like he's already done the most legendary stuff ever, like that wouldn't even be scratching the surface to what we're talking about if he were to come in and completely support the calling of a convention of states. Because people like, look, Trumpsters are on fire. When Trump and Vance get behind something, like, I mean, Trump joked about it in his early days. Like, I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and they'll still vote for me. Like, there are people who are that loyal to the president. And the fact of the matter is, if he could just take that loyalty and turn it into an honest movement and turn it into something that's bigger than the presidency, that's bigger than the federal government, turn it into something that empowers the people forever. Because honestly, just getting the process done, all right, because I think term limits are a no-brainer. Most states have them. I think it'll get ratified easily. As far as the balanced budget amendment, again, most states have balanced budget amendments. They can't print their own money. That has an excellent chance of getting approved and getting ratified. Right? Regulatory agencies, yeah, I think that has at least good language on it as far as non-elected officials creating laws. Yeah, I think that has a good chance to get put through. Can you convince everyone to overturn the 16th Amendment? Well, now it's getting tricky, right? Like once single subject amendments, I think a lot of states have that where you can't write, if you're going to write a bill for veterans, then everything in the bill has to be about veterans. You can't write the bill about veterans and then at the bottom of the bill, offer $200 million to find out the sex habits of Japanese quail while on cocaine. No, you have to separately pass the sex habits of Japanese quail on cocaine bill and sign that, right? That's a common sense thing. I think that will pass. That will get ratified. Right? But the bar to ratify is high. There has to be significant agreement on the bar to ratify. And if the Trump administration is carrying this along and it gets the kind of publicity that comes with the presidency of the United States, we've been taking 3-4 states a clip here. Right, as the John Birch Society and the Soros groups and all of these psychos try and scare state legislators out of their constitutional responsibility and out of scare the American people out of using their power, telling them, oh, it's too dangerous. Your power's too dangerous. That's crazy. That's just crazy talk. And the fact of the matter is, for those that want to say that, like if you guys know people who are hearing that message, because I spent a lot of my early days on this channel just smashing that garbage. Like I had a full out assault going on John Birch Society and their fake ass conservative movement. And if you don't know the history of that organization, they went ahead, they started out trying to call their own convention, and suddenly something, they've done a 360, as many organizations have done over the past some odd years, 5 or 10 years, right? And they've done their own 360 and just happen to find themselves in court, on the Senate floor of these states and the House floor of these states, aligning with the League of National Women Voters, which is a Soros group, aligning with Common Cause, which is a Soros group, aligning with Media Matters and the Daily Coast. Like, there's nothing a conservative group would have in common with those organizations. But John Birch, they found a way. They found a way. And his wife doesn't even like the fact that it's named John Birch. She's like, that society does not represent him in any way whatsoever. But they're out there, and they're out there scaring people, and they're out there showing up at these resolution hearings, and they're handing out CDs of scare material and telling these state legislators who don't know better and frankly should be reading more on this topic and think that they are when they get this information from John Birch Society. But I can tell you, every time one of them turns around and ends up coming across the finish line, there's always multiple people who are speaking up and saying, I was against this before I read my way into being for it. And then suddenly, voila, There they are. They're all for it all of a sudden. So this is what we're dealing with, and that's the reason it moves so slow. If Donald Trump and J.D. Vance come out, and really J.D. Vance can lead this charge. All we need from Donald Trump is an occasional blessing, talking on the subject and saying, yes, I do think that this is important. I think that these changes are important. They will be reading about this convention for the next, in 250 years from now, there will be sections, chapters in history books about the results of about the fact that we finally did it, because it changes. It's not just about the amendment that passes. It changes the entire dynamic. It changes the entire relationship between the federal government and the people. There will be a culture as such, okay, where we're no longer looking over our shoulder to wonder what the hell the government's doing. The government now will be looking over its shoulder, wondering what we're doing. When something like Obamacare gets thrown out there and we had to sit there and listen to him, despite it being hated by more than 50% of the population, we had to sit there and get spoken to as if we all agree with it. And listen to comments like we all agree with it. Well, let me tell you what happens in a post-convention world. Okay, when they start putting that out there, and there's a lot of angst and a lot of division over the topic, what happens is you suddenly start seeing one state put a petition out, another one put a petition out, a next one put a petition out, and next thing you know, the president's getting it whispered in his ear. There are 12 states already who have signed a petition, who have petitioned the government for a convention to make sure that this doesn't happen. And in the end, we don't get the extra amendment in the Constitution. The mere threat, because it had been accomplished before, the mere threat of doing it is enough. Now, all of a sudden, that thing's off the table. Our Bill of Rights, was actually put into the Constitution because of the threat of another convention. Okay, because the Anti-Federalists were like, no, if you do not put this Bill of Rights in, Mason, Henry, they're like, look, if you don't put this Bill of Rights in, all bets are off. And so even though Madison and others felt that the Constitution was good enough the way it was, they put it in because they didn't want to go through it. They didn't want to go through another convention. And frankly, I think we can all agree that while federalism may be where we are, that the Anti-Federalists definitely blessed us with that one. Can you imagine a constitution without freedom, without the First Amendment, Second Amendment? Can you imagine? Can you imagine what these psychos would have done? Can you, how many times have they tried to go after guns? Imagine there was no Second Amendment. Right? So amendments matter, right? Amendments matter. Stephanie Bushy over on Facebook. Impeach Biden and Harris. Now the people running Obama are going to push harder to destroy America before Biden's term is up. Look around. It's happening now. Yeah, there's no doubt that we're all, and I appreciate your comment there, Stephanie, over on Facebook. You know what? There's no doubt that there's an element of, look, we're all, so I was talking about earlier with this whole Project Bluebeam and these drones and whatever else, we're all kind of sitting here waiting. It's almost like the perfect environment for a mass formation where, we're all sitting here. We've got this free floating anxiety. We're all concerned. We don't know what exactly to attach that anxiety to. We just know that it's not going to be as easy as Trump just going up there, getting sworn in and starting to hit the hammer to the nail. There's going to be some sort of last ditch fight to get out of it, right? To stop it. And we don't know what it is. And it leaves people anxious. And when you see stuff like drones the size of cars and SUVs floating over New Jersey, and, that's the kind of stuff that it's like, oh, here we go, right? How many people out there watching this, especially my folks in Jersey, how many of you, when you heard this drone thing, immediately were like, oh, here we go, right? Here we go. Who had drones the size of the size of SUVs on their bingo card, right? That's exactly the way the whole nation feels. Right? The whole nation knows that this isn't going to be, they're not just going off into the sunset. It's just not going to happen that way. It's just not going to happen that way. And we'll see. I mean, look, we're all anxiously waiting, just like I'll be anxiously waiting to see what happens to the finance markets. Right? For a long time, China has, I've been talking about this forever. China has been buying gold. The BRICS countries in general have been buying gold, but China, I think it was third quarter 2023, where the Chinese were just buying. They were like this mystery entity is buying all of this gold, and what's going on. Everyone's trying to figure out who it is.
All right, I'm getting the spotlight, and I'm going to light this guy up.
Hold on.
Go right over.
All right, sorry about that. I just switched back to my other scene. I didn't realize I had that open. But the Chinese have been buying. They have this mystery buyer. They're buying all this gold in the third quarter, and they've been buying gold. But this time they were doing it so much it was noticeable, and eventually it came out that it was them. Right. So whether they'll be successful or not, there's not enough gold in the world for a major entity to go to the gold standard. I mean, you'd be talking about like these invisible sheets of gold that are so thin they're transparent, and like, for $1, right? Forget a penny or anything else. That ship is sort of already sailed. Now, there are other commodities we can look at, etc. But like the bottom line is, whether it's creepy technology or it's incredibly encrypted solid technology, it's likely going digital in one way or the other. Obviously, CBDC is not something anybody wants, and it's certainly not going to happen in the next 4 years. But Bitcoin or some version of could, if a better encrypted, it doesn't even have to be better encrypted. If the blockchain method, when not controlled and owned, which Bitcoin is not, it's like cash. I mean, it trades like cash. You can have a pretty much anonymous transaction as you could with cash. There is a very painstaking and long process that can be done if they want you that bad to try, but they can do that with cash as well, right? If they want you that bad, it's not like they never caught criminals, right? It's not like no one's ever been busted for money laundering. So, but as good as cash, Bitcoin from a privacy perspective, as good as cash, Bitcoin can be effective, and CBDC cannot, right? CBDC is the control mechanism. A lot of people get the two conflated. They're not the same. They are not the same. They say blockchain with CBDC, but it's really not blockchain. They have control of the entire piece from top to bottom. And we'll see how Trump handles the Fed in the next coming years, because that's going to be an interesting game as well. He has already said at least once that he has no intention of removing the Fed chairman. So I don't know that would make a huge difference anyway. Like, you're either going to audit the Fed or you're not. And if he goes in to audit them, yeah, get ready for the fireworks. Get ready for the fireworks. And I think a lot of this stuff is going to happen regardless. I think Trump is done. I think he's done with, as most of the American people are. I think he's done with all of it. He's done with this entire masquerade, this illusion, that this idea that somehow, it makes sense for a centralized private bank to be running the currency of the United States of America. It just doesn't. It just simply doesn't. And it's I think if I had to put my money right now on a future bet of what's going to happen with the Fed, I would think it's going to get a lot uglier. It's going to, I think there is going to come a point where they lock horns. I'm going to be happy to see it. But from a financial perspective, it's likely to get ugly for us. But that fight needs to happen. That fight needs to happen. It's just like an injury. It's just like medicine. It's going to hurt before it gets better, right? And so we've allowed this to go on and allowed ourselves to stay oblivious. But here's how I see it, right? Is that, and I never stop looking at the United States as an experiment in individual liberty, because that's what it is. And I make that point to people who are like, oh, we can't call a convention of states. The Constitution's fine the way it is. That's insane thought. That's an insane path of thinking. If everybody always thought that way, this would be a completely different country. And it wouldn't be for the better. Right? I mean, there are amendments that have gone on that were absolutely necessary, and there's no way to turn around and act like that's not the case. But when it comes to, you know, when it comes to this global stage, I just we're the only ones. We're the only ones who can take control of our problems, and we need to be ready for it to hurt, because it's going to hurt. We need to be ready to rebound from that, because we're going to need to rebound from that. And you say, well, what is that? Well, the example I was giving with currency, like, if we go after the Fed the way many educated individuals would love to, well, it's going to have an absolutely disastrous effect on our currency. Like, it will. Okay, the Fed, we owe an immense amount. Like, we've dug ourselves into a hole that's so deep, you can't just walk away and be like, you know, nah, you know what, we're not going to pay it. Like, if we turned around and did that and, like, shut down the Fed and just took it over, if you will, right? Like the economic disaster would be very real to the average individual living in this country. There would be no one to blame except ourselves. However, it's necessary. So then you get into the situation where it's like, all right, well, how can we do this and phase it over time? Well, the Fed, if they know they're going out, they're just going out nuclear. I can't imagine the Fed agreeing to a phased out approach to get rid of it. Like, I mean, I could be, maybe I'm underestimating and not giving enough credit to people, but I don't see that happening. But, you know, but we're going to see, right? There's a lot to see. And then, and the coming month, right? And month and a half, and even, you know, obviously the years to follow, like, there are so many unknowns about the path we're about to go down. And it's so beautiful to see, despite the unknowns, because it's absolutely necessary. And I 100% believe that. I think we're being ignorant if we act like it's, you know, like nothing's going to happen. But I think at the same time, something has to happen. It's just like, when we pass this balanced budget amendment, like, it's not going to be all unicorns and rainbows. Like, the government hasn't operated on a budget in forever. And the fact of the matter is, they've set up, there are going to be, like, everyone's getting money from some sort of program. Right. And I'm not, but I mean, a lot of people are. A lot of people, even people who we look at as, you know, not being moochers and whatnot, there's, like, everything's going to get slashed down, because it's going to be out. Like, Social Security is going to have to be reformed. We can't just let it go bankrupt, because there'll need to be a balanced budget. So we'll need to keep it sustainable. There will need to be, like, adult conversations that I don't know if the country's ready to have yet, but the fact of the matter is, they need to get ready. This whole putting your hands over your eyes and pretending you can't see anything, and then starting with the, you know, like in the case of Social Security, oh, they're going to push grandma off a cliff, and all the seniors are going crazy. It's like no senior was ever denied anything. Like, there was no one's plan for Social Security ever in history that involved seniors not getting their checks, ever. But politically, with these people trying to get reelected, and you know, they do a commercial throwing grandma off the cliff, and that's it. That's all they needed to see. But that's just one example. Like, there's a ton of examples of programs and things that the federal government has just never been designed to do, and has been doing, and has been wasting money on an epic. We'll see what DOGE can do from a cutting standpoint, and I feel like people are overestimating how much of an impact DOGE is going to have. It's going to be huge. It's going to be huge, but the overwhelming majority of the budget is Social Security and Medicare, both of which need to be revamped and changed. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't be providing for the elderly, and it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be providing health care for the most vulnerable, but at the same time, you can't do it this way. Like, we could debate all day long how it should be done, but you can't do it this way. No physician wants to accept it. And as soon as physicians get themselves out of HMO status, they don't accept it. And once they get themselves into seriously good status and they become that good a physician, they don't accept insurance at all. So it makes no sense to have the entire system based on paying directly without lowering the cost of healthcare. I could go on and on about this stuff, but that's getting off topic. But I'm just saying, get ready, folks, because the next few months are going to be crazy. Or the next month and a half is going to be crazy. The next few years are going to be even crazier. All right, and it's not. It ain't going to be all pretty. I know everybody thinks it's going to be, oh, you know, Trump's in. We're going to have low gas, high employment, this, that, whatever. Again, the bad guys don't go home easy. Lady Mern, stick with your moral foundation and go back to basics. You can always barter goods. Yeah, and honestly, it may come to that. It may come to that at some point. It doesn't mean it'll stay there forever. If there's anything about this nation is we're resilient. When we hit the amount of flexibility we have is incredible. The way that we can just pivot and turn entire industries, because it's all for, you know, when we get back to free markets, right? When we get back to free markets. But luxuries like the minimum wage and all those, like, those are going to be the first things to go if the nation's going to get back up from a blow like I'm talking about. How cool would that audit be? I would like to sit in on that one. Yeah, I don't think that one's going to be on C-SPAN. I don't think the auditing, it should be maybe, but I don't think the auditing of the Fed is going to be on C-SPAN, because they're going to go in there and find out all kinds of atrocities, and they're going to want to break that news to the American people easily, like not just dump it all out there. That's my take. But we'll see. I think they're going to want to look at it, see how bad it is, develop a plan, right, and get all that done, and then talk about it at the same time. Jersey is 326 away from 50,000 signatures. Nice. We've been exploding here. People are interested in real opinion to fix and real options to fix this country. That's good. And what she's talking about is convention of states, folks. So what you should be doing is you should be going either right now. I don't mind if you go right now, or right after this broadcast to conventionofstates.com. Click the link. Get yourself signed. Get your petition signed. Find out where your state is in this process, and click volunteer. Even if you're just going to be a social media warrior, that's fine, which means you just have to get educated on the topic and go ahead online and promote the cause, right? Explain to people, educate people, do stuff like what I'm doing here. Because that's what's going to make a difference. And someone local to you, by the way, will reach out. Someone like Lady Mern will reach out to you and let you know, hey, I'm the district captain here. I want to let you know where we're at, what we're doing, what progress we've made, et cetera. Like, and they'll point you to Cause University, which is all the video material to kind of get the constitutional arguments for everything and kind of get your ducks in a row. And then you go out there and you start letting them have it. And you start spreading the word and getting it done, right? And that's how we take the nation back, folks. That's how we take it back. So I can't advocate it enough. Obviously, this ain't the last conversation I'm going to have with it. But, to my folks in Jersey, be careful with those drones out there, right? Videotape as much as you can, though, but don't, if they're getting close to you and stuff, stay safe, right? But at the same time, everybody keep your eyes open for the next month and a half, because things are about to get crazy. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I hope nothing happens, but I honestly believe that something bad's going to happen, or at least they're going to try to do something crazy. Is it going to be as crazy as Project Bluebeam? It could be. I don't put it past them. But at least now, right? As crazy as that idea sounds, if you do see something like that, that Christ isn't coming in a way that is going to be foretold by a conspiracy theorist. Right? So I think that's the best way to look at it. All right. But until next time, folks, I'm going to be coming I should be on next Thursday without a problem. If you have not already, please click, no matter what platform you're watching on, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, or X. X is my preferred. Rumble, close second. If you can get on there, click the follow, click the subscribe. Make sure you're hitting notify when live. I only come on once a week at best, maybe sometimes twice a week, but I'm not going to blow up your notifications, but it's a full engagement broadcast, so it is cool to see you guys come on. I appreciate everyone who has commented. Stephanie Bushy, Ruben, Lady Mern, of course. Who else did I have up here? It doesn't give me the whole Roger Backer. Yeah, I don't have some of you got scrolled off the list here, but I appreciate all of you, all of your comments. Thank you for hitting me up on the audio earlier as well. And until next week, folks, I'm out.